Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about one of the most heartbreaking moments in the Dog Stars, what actually happened to Jasper, Hig's loyal dog, and why his death is so important to the story. Before we continue, here's your spoiler alert. We're going to discuss Jasper's death, how it happens, and what his loss means for Hig and the rest of the movie. So, does Jasper die in the Dog Stars? Yes, and his death happens much earlier than you might expect. Jasper is Hig's Belgian Malinois and one of the most important characters in his life. In a world where almost everyone Hig knew is gone, Jasper is more than just a pet. He's his companion, he's his protector, and in many ways, he's the last connection Hig has to the normal life that existed before the pandemic. Hig lives at an abandoned airport in Colorado with Jasper and Bangley, a heavily armed former Marine. Their lives are built around survival. They collect food, they search for fuel, they patrol the surrounding area, and they constantly watch for dangerous groups of survivors. Hig also uses his plane to scout the area and search for supplies. Jasper is often with him during these routines. The dog gives Hig something that Bangley can't: companionship without suspicion. Jasper doesn't question Hig's decisions. He doesn't care about the state of the world. He simply stays beside him. And that's why his death hurts so much. The attack happens when Hig and Bangley are dealing with a group of marauders. The world outside their airport is dangerous, and these attackers aren't interested in negotiation. They want supplies, and they're willing to kill to get them. Hig finds himself in serious danger, and Jasper reacts the way he always has. He protects Hig. Instead of running away, Jasper moves toward the threat. He fights to defend his owner. But this time, Jasper doesn't survive. He's killed during the attack, and the scene is devastating because Hig doesn't just lose a dog, he loses his closest friend. For Hig, Jasper has been there through everything: the pandemic, the collapse of civilization, the loss of his wife, the loneliness, the constant fear, and now Jasper is gone too. That's why his death becomes a major turning point for Hig. Before this happens, Hig has managed to convince himself that the airport can still be a home. It's heavily defended, they have weapons, they have food, they have an aircraft, and as long as Hig and Bangley remain careful, they can continue surviving. But Jasper's death changes that. Suddenly, the airport doesn't feel like safety anymore. It feels like a prison. Hig begins questioning whether simply staying alive is enough. And that's what eventually pushes him toward the mysterious radio signal he's been hearing. For years, Hig has picked up a strange transmission coming from the direction of Grand Junction. Bangley doesn't trust it. He believes following an unknown signal could get them killed. But Hig sees something different. He sees the possibility that someone else is still out there. And after losing Jasper, that possibility becomes even more important. Hig realizes that if he stays where he is, he could spend the rest of his life protecting supplies, checking the perimeter, and waiting for the next attack. He doesn't want that. The airport may be secure, but it has also become a prison. Every day looks the same. Wake up, check the weapons, check the supplies, fly out looking for fuel or food, return before dark, and hope nobody finds them. Jasper had made that life bearable. Without him, Hig suddenly sees how empty it really is. So Jasper's death becomes one of the reasons Hig finally decides to leave. And this is where the movie's emotional story really begins. Hig follows the mysterious radio signal and travels farther from the airport than he has in years. Eventually, that journey leads him to Seema and Pops. Meeting them changes his understanding of what might still exist in the world. There are other people. There are still relationships. There is still kindness. And there might still be a future. But it's important to understand that Seema doesn't simply replace Jasper. She represents something completely different. Jasper represents Hig's connection to the past. Seema represents the possibility of the future. Jasper was the companion who stayed beside Hig while the old world disappeared. Seema is someone Hig meets after that world is already gone. That difference is crucial. Hig doesn't move forward because he forgets Jasper. He moves forward because Jasper's death forces him to understand that he cannot spend the rest of his life hiding from loss. That's why the movie needs Jasper's death to happen before Hig begins this next chapter. If Jasper remained alive, Hig would have one more reason to stay inside his familiar routine. He could continue telling himself that protecting Jasper was enough. But after losing him, Hig has to ask a much harder question. What is he actually surviving for? And that's one of the central themes of the Dog Stars. The story isn't just about surviving a pandemic. It's about dealing with loss. Hig has already lost his wife. He has lost his old life. He has lost the society he knew. And then he loses Jasper. Every time Hig loses someone, he's forced to decide whether he's going to shut himself away or continue searching for something worth living for. Jasper's death pushes him toward that second choice. There's also something important about the way Jasper is portrayed before he dies. The movie doesn't treat him as a simple plot device. He's constantly present in Hig's daily life. He travels with him. He protects him. He stays beside him. And he gives Hig a reason to come home. That makes Jasper feel like a real part of Hig's life, rather than simply a character who exists to make the audience emotional. Because of that, when Jasper is suddenly gone, we understand exactly what Hig has lost. It's not just a dog. It's the destruction of one of the last safe relationships in his life. And there's an interesting difference between the movie and Peter Heller's original novel. In the book, Jasper also dies, but his death happens very differently. The elderly dog dies peacefully in his sleep while Hig is with him during a trip into the mountains. The film changes that into a much more violent death during an attack. And perhaps most importantly, a future is still possible. That's what makes Jasper's role in the story so important. He doesn't simply exist to make the audience sad. His death is the event that pushes Hig into the next stage of his journey. Without Jasper, Hig finally begins searching for something beyond survival. And that eventually leads him towards Seema, Pops, and the possibility of building a new kind of family. So, what happened to Jasper? He was killed while defending Hig during an attack by marauders. His death is permanent. There is no secret rescue or surprise return later in the movie. And emotionally, his death represents much more than the loss of a beloved dog. Jasper was Hig's last connection to the world before the pandemic. He represented the person Hig used to be. Once Jasper is gone, Hig has to accept that the old world is truly over. But that doesn't mean Hig's story is over. Instead, Jasper's death becomes the moment that pushes him toward a new life. And that's ultimately why the scene is so important. Hig doesn't stop loving Jasper. He doesn't forget him. He simply learns that continuing to live doesn't mean leaving the past behind. It means carrying those memories with you while still being willing to move forward. So even though Jasper doesn't make it to the end of the Dog Stars, his presence remains one of the most important parts of Hig's journey. He was there when Hig had almost nothing left. And when Jasper is gone, Hig finally realizes that he can't spend the rest of his life simply protecting what's left. He needs to find something new. He needs to discover whether there are still people worth trusting. And he needs to decide whether survival alone is enough. Jasper's death doesn't give Hig an answer. It forces him to start looking for one. And that decision changes everything that happens afterward. What did you think of Jasper's death? Did you expect the movie to kill him so early, or were you hoping he would survive until the end? And if you've read Peter Heller's novel, which version of Jasper's death did you find more emotional? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe for more movie explanations, endings, and the latest sci-fi and thriller stories.